Hi, I'm Jared, and today I'll be talking about Vibrant Matter by Jane Bennett. So first, to start off, let me ask you this. What do a dirty leather glove, tree pollen, the North American electrical grid, potato chips, and stem cells all have in common? To Jane Bennett, they are all essentially alive, pulsing and vibrating with a vital materiality that unifies all things, living and non-living, human and non-human. In her 2010 book, Vibrant Matter, Bennett, a political theorist at Johns Hopkins, proposes a philosophy that ties the universe together, not through an omniscient God or an all-pervading spirit soul, but by the very material stuff that makes up everything, substance, place, and person in the world. In 8 short chapters, Bennett surveys philosophical investigations of life, spirit, and matter from across the centuries. Her goal is ultimately a political one, to explore how analyses of political events and power can be strengthened by giving the force of things more attention. In this way, Bennett's project actually de-centers the human ego, putting us in our rightful place. That is, embedded within a complex, ever-evolving world of things that matter. So, what motivates Bennett's project and this book? It's based on a hunch that she explains early on in the book, and her hunch is this: that our traditional image of, quote, dead or thoroughly instrumentalized matter feeds human hubris and our earth-destroying fantasies of conquest and consumption, end quote. In other words, our 5,000-year-old philosophies that place humans up here and everything else down here are rapidly making life on Earth uninhabitable for plants, animals, and people alike. Maybe you buy her thesis, maybe you don't, but it's hard to deny the value of seriously rethinking how we humans relate to the living and the non-living, to those things that define our shared reality. I love considering this stuff, and I found Bennett's book tremendously intriguing and provocative. To give you a sense of how Bennett's notion of material vitality unfolds through the book, there's a few ideas that I want to highlight. The first idea is what she calls thing power. To Bennett, quote, "Thing power is the curious ability of inanimate things to animate, to act, to produce effects, dramatic and subtle." So Bennett provides an illustrative example of thing power and how it complicates our standard ideas of agency and causality by turning to something utterly common: the humble potato chip. Bennett writes, quote, "To eat chips is to enter into an assemblage in which the I is not necessarily the most decisive operator. Chips challenge the idea that what people want is a personal preference entirely of their own making," end quote. So anyone who has struggled to exercise self-control and stop themselves from eating an entire bag of potato chips in one sitting can relate. There is a way in which something like a potato chip exercises real physical and psychological power over people and the world. This is just one example that Bennett provides of how material things act within the world. The other examples she uses, electrical power grids, stem cells, weather systems, are all just essentially big groupings of things and flows and people that exert force in the world around us. Building these stories of how things happen in the world enables Bennett to argue quite lucidly that, quote, "the locus of agency is always a human, non-human working group," end quote. Our seemingly individual choices, actions, beliefs, behaviors, habits, and relations are always already being shaped by material things and flows that extend far beyond ourselves. This kind of makes it clear that our traditional notions of rugged individualism, and human separatism are woefully inadequate as organizing principles for life and society. Now, one potential criticism, right, that could be lobbed at Bennett and the book is focused on this idea of materialism. Isn't our world thoroughly materialistic? Doesn't consumer culture already give far too much power to the material and to the physical? Shouldn't we be seeking to transcend this earthly material realm? These are all fair questions. Bennett, however, counters this logic by arguing that, quote, American materialism, which requires buying ever-increasing numbers of products purchased in ever-shortened cycles, is anti-materiality. The sheer volume of commodities and the hyper-consumptive necessity of junking them to make room for new ones conceals the vitality of matter, end quote. So, stated differently, our contemporary consumer culture actively destroys the vibrancy of material objects, things, people, and places by making them thoroughly disposable. Single-use plastics, strip mining, labor exploitation, these practices rob the vital materiality, the vital material world of the dignity and vibrancy that animates our planet. One strategy that Bennett advocates for sort of re-enchanting the material world with power and vibrancy is anthropomorphism, or also known as the investment of non-human things with human attributes, agencies, and feelings. Anthropomorphization gets a bad rap as an immature, naive way to look at the world. To Bennett, however, anthropomorphism is critical to enriching our understanding of humanity as not the kings and queens of creation, but instead as thoroughly embedded in a world that vibrates with a dense web of life. Quote, in a vital materialism, an anthropomorphic element in perception can uncover a world of resonances and resemblances, sounds and sights that echo and bounce far more than would be possible were the universe to have a hierarchical structure. In other words, sure, go ahead, hug a tree, give your favorite flower a friendly nickname, talk back kindly to the thunderstorm when it rages at your roof, feel how your home gets happier every time you walk in the door. Doing so helps make our world a little bit more balanced, peaceful, and just. An important counterpoint to Bennett's support for anthropomorphism is an idea she borrows from critical theorist Theodor Adorno. It's an idea called non-identity. What it boils down to is fairly simple. It's basically this, that life and the world will always exceed our knowledge and control. The mental concepts that we humans hold about things out there in the world are never completely perfect descriptions of those things. Our ideas are not exhaustive of the thing in itself. Adorno's reference point for humanity's rejection of non-identity was the Holocaust. Auschwitz can only occur in a world in which humans define themselves as masters and reduce other people and things to mere reflections of mental concepts. Entire communities became completely identified by the Nazis as entities to be destroyed by the master race, an act of intellectual and political hubris that enabled the world's worst atrocities. For Adorno and Bennett, the only solution is to keep remembering the fundamental reality of non-identity and to learn to accept it. Only through intellectual humility can we embrace the fact that the inherent unknowability of all things is actually the very force that unites us all. No thing, person, or substance is totally knowable or explainable, and that's the great unifying joy of life in the world. As a political theorist, Bennett is ultimately working toward a new definition for our political society, for our polity, one that is less hierarchical, more horizontal, more communicative, and more inclusive of humans and non-humans. She concludes the book with a creed of sorts for the vital materialist who follows the theory, the idea of vibrant matter. It's a good articulation of the philosophy and the politics she's built through the book, and I'll quote it here. Quote, "I believe in one matter energy, the maker of things seen and unseen. I believe that this pluriverse is traversed by heterogeneities that are continually doing things. I believe it is wrong to deny vitality to non-human bodies, forces, and forms, and that a careful course of anthropomorphization can help reveal that vitality, even though it resists full translation and exceeds my comprehensive grasp. I believe that encounters with lively matter can chasten my fantasies of human mastery, highlight the common materiality of all that is, expose a wider distribution of agency, and reshape the self and its interests." It's a nice little creed there, and it's a good way for her to end the book. So in sum, I found this book to have an expanding effect on my mind and my notions of myself and the world. I think that ideas like Bennett's are essential as we continue the struggle to build a society that is more peaceful, just, and more ecological. I recommend Vibrant Matter to anyone who is intrigued by the beauty and liveliness of the world and seeks a new way to think about being within this big, crazy planet of ours. Thanks for watching.